From brokenness to breakthrough, this is Failure into Freedom. I'm Katie Holt-Lehrman, a mom, wife, entrepreneur, and survivor, here to share my story of walking away from domestic violence, finding healing through faith, and learning to live free. Each week, we'll talk about resilience, hope, and the truth that no matter your past, you are never too far gone for freedom. This is real. This is raw. This is Failure into Freedom. Let's dive in. Hey, friends, and welcome back to Failure into Freedom. I'm Katie, and I'm so grateful you're here. We took a week off to launch the Freedom Foundry, and my heart is still overflowing watching the women who have already stepped into this space. That community is truly a God dream coming to life. But today, we're jumping right back into my story because the part I'm about to share is the foundation of why the Freedom Foundry exists and why I believe so deeply in creating a safe space for women who are rebuilding their lives. This next chapter is where everything was stripped away so God could save me. So where I left off, I had just been told that I was moving to San Angelo to live with my parents and basically was put on full bed rest at around 25 weeks pregnant. This was right after the holidays, so January of 2019, and I was devastated. I had gone from being so independent, working 40 plus hours a week and standing on my own 2 feet to living with my parents and feeling like my son was my sibling, unable to drive, unable to work, unable to even function the way I used to. And for 2 straight weeks, I cried every single day. I would take my toddler outside so he could just play and we wouldn't be stuck in the house just watching TV and rotting on the couch. And I'd sit on the swing and I would just sob. I felt like everything I had worked for so hard to be independent had just been ripped away from me. I felt like God was taking my entire identity away. And I kept thinking, how did I get here? How did my life fall apart this fast? What am I doing? Who am I? I felt like I had nothing. And when you're stripped like that, when your independence is gone, it feels like you are starting from rock bottom. Eventually, I convinced my mom to take me to Hobby Lobby because sitting on the couch all day was destroying me. At first, I thought I was going to tool leather, which is hilarious because I have zero patience. I'm an instant gratification kind of girly when it comes to crafting. I need to knock it out in 10 minutes or less, or I don't want to do it. That's why me and vinyl don't get along either. So I wandered to the next aisle, and there they were, the beads, the precious and semi-precious stones, the turquoise, the jasper, the agate, all the things I used to love when I worked in the Western wear store, and I drooled over the Native American jewelry. It was like this tiny little spark inside my chest flickered for the first time in months. The stones were 50% off, and I had a little bit of money in savings, and I thought, all right, God, maybe this is something. So I bought about $150 worth of beads, leather, wire, jump rings, and I went home and made 10 necklaces. I loved them, but I was terrified to show anybody. My confidence was destroyed. I had gone from being the face of a business to disappearing off the planet because of the abuse, the chaos, and because everything was so hush hush about what was happening in our lives. But my mom and my precious grandmother, they encouraged me. They told me they were beautiful. My grandmother would hype me up just like she always did with anything that involved makeup, hair, jewelry, and just being a girly girl. And finally, after a few days, I posted them online and they sold out. I remember my mom and stepdad looking at me saying, Katie, you have a business here. And part of me believed them, but another part of me felt so small. I didn't know how to do books or taxes or any of that. So my mom, project manager to her core, just swooped in and handled everything. The EIN, the DBA, the sales tax ID. She set up Grace and Grit Designs. And yes, The name was hers too. She came up with the color scheme, the logo, everything. If you've been here since the beginning, you know that turquoise was not always our color. It used to be a coral color because that is my mom's favorite color. Because technically, it was her business because nothing could be set up in my name because eventually I'd be filing for divorce and my ex-husband probably would try to go after everything. And if you could tell by the change in my voice and demeanor, yes, that season triggered a lot of childhood trauma around obedience and not being allowed to have a voice. There were moments where I felt like I just had to fall in line and be grateful. And I am grateful because of Grace and Grit. There's so many different reasons when you hear my story as we continue on. So many doors opened because of it. Business wise, friendship wise, relationship wise, doing this, ultimately, I had to go through all of this to get to this point in my life. So I'll forever be grateful for it. And God uses what feels like controlling or frustrating or painful things and brings the good out of it. Here's an example of God taking what the enemy tried to use for evil and he turns it for good. Back when, remember that fateful night after I called the police and everyone showed up at my doorstep the next morning and I had my first OB appointment for the baby that I was carrying. The doctor who delivered my first baby was like, "Hey, what's your insurance situation look like for this time?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I'm young enough to still be on my mom's insurance. I'll probably get back on her insurance or if I qualify financially, probably Medicaid for this pregnancy." And she looked at me and she was like, "I didn't say anything, but your name is on the top of the list to get a refund because you overpaid with your insurance with your last pregnancy." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And I was like, "Well, how do I handle that?" She said, "Just call billing, tell them you got a letter, you want your refund." And I'm like, "Okay." She's like, "Keep it on download." Like, Roger. So I get home, I call billing. "Hey, I got a letter. My name is so-and-so. Last four of my social's this." And they're like, "Oh, yeah, we'll process your refund. Do you want it back on whatever?" I'm like, "Yeah, back on that card." And I was like, "How much is it?" Guys, it was $6,500. And within a week, I had $6,500 sitting in my savings account. So now let's fast forward to my family or my parents looking at me telling me like, "Hey, we think you got a business." My mom runs off and gets EIN, DBA, and everything else. And now I have a little bit of money to not only kind of try to keep me afloat and pay my car payment, my insurance, my cell phone, the things that I still had to pay every single month, but also put money into something that maybe would make me more money in the long run. So I had that seed money as well. So the money sat in savings until I basically launched Grace and Grit Designs with my mom, and I paid the bills when I couldn't work because I was still on bed rest technically. It was literally God funding my escape route before I knew I needed one. Then my sweet little sticker burr was born. I had her at 39 weeks on the day, because we had to evict her out because she wanted to come early and then she didn't want to come at all. She was healthy, perfect, looked just like her big brother. My mom and grandma were in the room. It was sweet. It was very out of body experience. I remember the only reason I remember this because my grandmother took a video of it, which I will forever be grateful she did. The moment that my daughter was born and she was put on my chest, and I have one little tear that came down my eye because I was in such shock that I was a single mom delivering a baby by myself clearly with my mom and my grandma, but I was just in shock. It was very out of body experience. Anywho, about a week later, I was sitting in my attorney's office with the newborn, laying out everything: journals, pictures, police reports, court cases. I had the biggest freaking box of evidence you probably ever seen for just a initial meeting. And I tell her, "Listen, I want a divorce and I want to terminate his rights to both of these children. She was honest. Termination was going to be extremely difficult in the state of Texas. I told her that's the fight I want, and we will win. A couple weeks later, with a newborn and toddler, we drove to my house in Bryan College Station to pack up the rest of me and my children's belongings. But when I opened the front door, I was stepping into a nightmare. Mold everywhere. The couch, the walls, the cabinets, the bedding, the floors, every room. It looked like a mossy green forest. Someone had broken in, ripped the TVs off the walls, taken whatever they want, and left the back window wide open, letting moisture pour in for weeks or months. The mold inspectors told us the normal spore count outside was 1,000 per million. Inside my house, in every single room in the house that they tested, was off the charts. 1.7 million spores per million. I'm talking black mold, aspergillus, whatever, however you say it. I had the top 5 worst of the worst molds in my house. They told us we couldn't even walk in safely without masks and biohazard gear. And there I was holding 2 babies, 1 newborn, and everything I owned, my adult life, even some of the stuff dating back to my childhood, was contaminated. Insurance refused to cover remediation, of course. They would only cover the door frame that they broke in, the window that they escaped out of, and the stolen TVs if I had receipts. Everything else? Yeah, sorry. Can't do it. I had no money for remediation. Surf Pro said it was going to be upwards of $13,000 to remediate the house. Just the house. And then throwing everything inside the house away. I had no ability to fix it, so my mom jumped into project management mode again and researched and figured out what we were going to do next. So we went back to San Angelo, recouped. She found a place how we could mold remediate the house ourselves so at least the house wouldn't get condemned and we would just throw everything inside the house away. So after we went back to San Angelo and recouped and came up with a game plan, we took my parents' fifth wheel with the 2 kids and went to Bryan College Station for, I want to say, about a week and a half. And every day, me and my stepdad spent going into the home in biohazard suits, and my mom stayed in the fifth wheel with the babies. And I threw my entire life away into trash bags. And then we paid someone to come haul it off, to throw it away for us. My FFA jackets, my boots, my purses, baby clothes I saved, pictures, certificates, furniture, everything from my adult life before bedrest. I stood in that house and I cried as I threw it away. I kept thinking, why am I the one paying the price for his abuse, for his choices, for his drugs, for his violence? Why is my life being burned to the ground? Oh, I was so angry at God. Angry at the injustice, angry that I had fought so hard to build something and felt like he was ripping it out of my hands. But sometimes God has to strip you of the old you that you were clinging to. The identities, the pride, the stuff you worship unknowingly, the things you think define you. Because God knows none of that could go with you into the future He's building. And here's the wild part. 1 week before discovering the mold, I had prayed while listening to New Wine by Hillsong. I told God, strip me, press me, squeeze me, make new wine out of me. I prayed for it, but I had no idea what I was asking for. God. And God answered fully, entirely, painfully. But He wasn't punishing me. even though in the moment it really felt like he was punishing me. He was rescuing me. He was breaking every chain that tied me to a life I was never meant to return to. He stripped me down to just me and him. That's all I had left, was me and him and my 2 children. He did it so he could capture my heart and rebuild me, not as the shame-filled, exhausted, pretending to be strong version of Katie, but as his daughter. The woman I am today started in the mold-infested house, in those trash bags, in the grief, in that surrender. And before I close today, I want to leave you with the scripture that carried me through one of the darkest seasons of my life and ultimately became my business scripture. Romans 8:28. And we know that all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. All things, even the stripping, even the emptying, even the loss that doesn't feel fair. God worked all of it for your good and for his purpose. If you are walking through a season like this, if you feel like everything familiar has been torn away, if you are pressed or crushed or confused, I want you to know you are not being destroyed, you are being transformed. And you don't have to walk alone in that transformation. That's exactly why I created this podcast, as well as the Freedom Foundry. It's a safe sisterhood for women rebuilding their identity, their faith, their confidence, and their lives. If you're in a stripping season and you need women to walk beside you, pray for you, and help you rebuild, please come join us. Thank you so much for listening to episode 8. I love you guys. I'm so grateful. I'm proud of you, and I'll see you soon. Bye.